Our next speaker now studied at the Royal Military School and at the Vrije Universiteit Brussel. In 2005, after writing a dissertation on cyber defense, he joined the General Intelligence and Security Service, and there he was responsible for the security of classified networks, and he set up the first cybersecurity unit of the Belgian defense. Ever since 2008, he and his cyber team are involved in processing all major cyber incidents in Belgium. And in 2015, he became the managing director of the CCB, the Center for Cybersecurity Belgium. Other than that, he's a passionate badminton player and he adores traveling. Let's hear about a cyber-secure Belgium and how a collaboration between the CCB and Beltug can support that ambition. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Miguel De Bruycker.
Thank you very much. Good evening. I've learned a lot this evening. Well, first of all, to be honest, when I was a teenager, I didn't have a Commodore. I didn't have a TRS-80. I had Nadine, Karine, and Stella. So I'm not sure who had more fun when he was teenager Jackson. Okay. We have heard a lot, and it was the colleague from Germany who used a few times the word liability. And I think that is a cornerstone of what we're doing in the domain of security. When we want to enhance our prosperity and we want to push it through that digital transformation, we will need trust. And you cannot build trust between people when they're not liable. And I'll come back to that a little bit later. So we need additional security layers in the whole environment. It's a shared responsibility. I've heard this evening you have the users. If you use a system or if you're driving crazy with a car, accidents will happen. If that car is not built in a secure way, it will go wrong. We've heard wheels will drop off. So if software isn't created in a correct way, if people don't use the systems, if the infrastructure is not correct, but even if the legal framework is not really what it should be, all those components together will make that our environment will follow up, being sufficiently secure, having all the risks managed in a correct way. If you look at what is going on, phishing attacks. Every day we receive 14,000 emails or messages from the population forwarding suspicious messages. Last year we had over 85 ransomware attacks, and I think that we handled, incidents that we handled. I think it's only a tip of the iceberg, to be honest. I understand that most victims don't even tell government that something went wrong. Data exfiltration, DDoS attacks. How is all this possible? How is it possible that we cannot manage to set up a decent level sometimes of security on that internet? Well, to be honest, my perception is because we are vulnerable. You look at an actor with intentions and abilities to conduct a malicious action, exploiting a vulnerability of a target. And if you go through that chain, we want to put the focus on being less vulnerable. Why? Well, because human beings, they trust each other. And they are happy when they get the message you just won something. Or they are afraid when you get the message you didn't pay your invoice, you didn't pay your taxes. And on the other hand, you have all you guys here. Yes, you're that person with the glasses on. The IT complexity is so hard. You have to implement hundreds of security controls. And if you forget one thing, if you forget to patch one system, we recently handled an incident where they switched from an old VPN to a new VPN. And everybody was using that new VPN except for a few people. So they forgot that the old VPN was there, and then, well, things goes wrong. They forget to patch them. System is vulnerable. They break in. Once they broke in, they take over your whole network. So it is incredibly challenging, and to be honest, I think that what we are currently having is more or less what I call synthetic trust in the internet. We trust the internet, but based on what? It's not real. It's synthetic. And so now we are migrating to zero trust. Another buzzword, but to be honest, I think it works, except for it's very hard and expensive to implement. So somewhere the result or the solution might be somewhere in the middle. Digital identity-based trust, making sure that if you use a service, there is an identity linked to the person that is using, that is delivering that service. Liability. We've heard it a few times. We will have to choose if we continue to work on an internet that is fully anonymous, that is an open and free internet, but is not really linked, that you can very hardly use services linked to who you are. If you visit a website, you don't know if there is a trusted publisher. You don't know that. If you receive a message, is that really from your daughter? Is the mail address, is the phone number not being spoofed? So we need technology, we need security layers that make it more visible. The government has approved our new national cybersecurity strategy, and our main mission now is to make Belgium one of the least vulnerable countries in the EU. Now, that might sound ambitious, but to be honest, if you look at, for instance, the BitSite index, that's an index that we use that is measuring for a country 13 criteria on number of infections per habitants and stuff like that. We are currently at the 2nd place, together with Germany. So we're not doing that bad. And we are implementing a concept of what we call active cybersecurity. I could explain to you that, for instance, now we are changing law and we are implementing the National Cybersecurity Certification Authority under the EU Cybersecurity Act. I could explain to you that by this year, by the end of the year, will also be the National Coordination Center under the European Competence Center. I could try to explain where they are with NIS2, but Gerdy told me that you're all here for those incredible parties afterwards, so I thought I must make sure that next time they also invite me again to tell about that. So I will continue with the more concrete stuff. We've tried to understand and to see on the dark web how those critical gangs, how they are working. And they don't start to select the target. They start up with vulnerabilities. They evaluate all new vulnerabilities that come out. They evaluate all old vulnerabilities and how exploitable they are. Can they get access easily to systems that they can identify easily? And then they sell that information on the dark web. They get access to your system, install a web shell, or just steal some credentials, and then they sell that access. And then you have another gang that is buying all the digital stuff, how to break in, how to do the work, how to install the ransomware kits, and they are buying access to companies. They're saying, okay, this is a company that might be interesting. They will probably pay, and they collect information, and in that way they break in, they exfiltrate some data, quite important, because afterwards they want to make sure that you pay, and then they install a ransomware. So what we have been trying to do is also to do a daily analysis on all those new vulnerabilities. We do that on a daily basis. We try to see if these are exploitable and if we can identify vulnerable systems in our country. We collect all that information in a database and we try to identify, and we are currently in a process of changing the law, giving us the possibility to identify the owner of a vulnerable system based on his IP address. And we sent them what we call SPE warnings. The criminals invented SPE phishing. Well, we said we're going to send SPE warnings to tackle that. So we have a database with over 50,000 IP addresses that we collect every day with vulnerable systems, with some vulnerability, tens of thousands or more than 20,000 with open ports, botnet drones, stuff like that. We collect that all in a database and we try to send warnings out. Another project that we launched in 2017, at the end of 2017, was bfish. Yes, there is in 4 languages the mail address suspicious@savonweb.be. So instead of saying, okay, this is how you can recognize a phishing mail, if you see one, don't click or do nothing. We said, well, send it to us. We will handle it. But at that time, we didn't expect to receive 14,000 emails a day. So that was quite challenging. So last year, we had 4.5 million emails. That's 12,500 a day. For the first months of this year, we are at an average of 14,000 a day. We extract with third parties, to be honest. We extract all malicious links. We send that to Microsoft, to Google, for Google Safe Browsing, for instance. And then we also extract those domains for which we know that they are completely malicious, in the sense that they told us, Miguel, you cannot, in our country, you cannot block access to a website. You cannot do that. Government doesn't do that. I said, okay. So if we check that there is no website on the homepage, on the domain itself, that should be okay. They say, well, probably not, but nobody will complain. So we did that, and together with, for the moment, Proximus, Telenet and Belnet, we're still talking to Orange and VOO, we do send a very small list, small because we must be absolutely sure that we don't block anything where there is a website, no matter what the content is. We don't judge about the content. We do send that, and they have a DNS rerouting to a server that we manage with a warning page. We send out that warning page 10,000, on average 10,000 times a day for the moment. So that's incredible, and that's only for the last few months that this system is really going up in number of warning pages, and we're trying to optimize that system. And another thing that we do with those 14,000 emails per day is we have a system that is evaluating everything that's coming in, and if we have more than 250 similar messages in 10 minutes, there is an alert going to an operator. There's a manual evaluation, and as Jack said, government is coming to you in a digital way. Well, we are there because we have our smartphone app. You can already download it. And we will send out, if we see large campaigns, we will try to, in a very fast way, in a matter of actually minutes instead of hours or days, we want to warn the people, be careful, there's a campaign going on bpost, if I can use that name, or DHL. They're probably not here, I hope. And we say, watch out. Don't get caught on that. So these are examples of those projects where we try to warn people about what is going on. That is what we call active cyber defense, not just creating policies and making sure that there is expertise. Of course we're doing that. And we will also build a greenhouse in the future, supporting new initiatives, startups. Yes, absolutely, you have to do that. But as a government, I think you also have to go a step further, and you have to try to think how things are really happening in your world and what you can do to help that out. These are some figures of last year's. As you said, we handled over 7,000 requests. Now you have to know that 6 years ago, Fedra and I were sitting there with 2 people. starting up a government agency, having to use the sailor recruitment system of Jack. More or less. Sorry, Jack. I'll buy you a beer afterwards. I'm sorry for that. And by the end of this year, we will be more than 80 people, and we will grow through probably to 120 people quite fast. So I think that we have been doing quite some interesting stuff. Very fast, we have an early warning system that we operate for operators of essential services, operators of critical infrastructure, nuclear infrastructure and stuff like that. This system that has quite some features, and I will not go through detail because time is almost up, I think. We will implement that system. I'll give you this one. March last year, there was a vulnerability in Exchange. You probably all know that. And everybody had to patch as fast as possible. And the dotted line, what you see there, is early March, where you see that, well, apparently Belgians don't patch that fast. If you look at the world average, well, yeah, it was more or less that. The EU average, we're not doing such a great job. So what we try to do in the concept of that spear warning is to identify as fast as possible what the vulnerable systems were in our country. So we tried to identify the owners, and we were lucky. We were lucky in the sense that Exchange servers more or less have a certificate. In a certificate you have an organization or a domain name. That's not true for a lot of other servers. So there we were lucky. We were able to identify quite easily and quite fast the owners of those vulnerable systems, sending them a message. We even sent out 1,000 letters on paper because that worked. Recto verso, French, Dutch, of course. Not in English, it's forbidden by law. But as you see on that graph, 10 days later, we were doing much better than the European average. So we really believe that if we could use all that information, collect all that information, follow up on vulnerabilities, it's only a small step, it's only a small part of the whole bunch of measures that you have to take. But I think as a government, as we have the possibility to do that, that is something that we should continue to do. And then finally, we have Save on Web for Business. That's a portal that we are building. And the goal is to open up that early warning system with alerts, with the possibility to register your domains, even your IP addresses, IP ranges, and to get all the information that we get that is linked to what you have entered in that system. That system should be available early next year somewhere. And will be, of course, free of charge on condition that I can once or come to your after party. What can we do for you? No, it will be free of charge. Well, as Jack said, we didn't talk to each other, but I have to end my presentation more or less in the same way. We are doing this for you. And quality and user requirements go together. So you have my phone number. If you don't, you can get it. And please let us know what do you want? How can we help you? What do you think about what we're doing? What do you think about cybersecurity on Belgium level, on European level? We can play a role. We think we're doing more or less the right stuff and things. But it's also up to you to give us some ideas, to give us some feedback on what we're doing. Thank you very much.